Okay, I'm ready to go. So, times have changed. I've got a new face, got a new space, and I'm here to have a chat. Many of you know that my channel has been associated with the cartoon community on YouTube for 4 years, but those times are over. Now that I've officially cut my ties with that side of YouTube, I no longer have to be afraid to speak the words inside my mind. But I don't feel like I'll be completely free of that community until I shed some light on some interesting things I witnessed during my time within it. Now, my intention is not to defame anyone in particular, or insinuate that every facet of the community is bad, since many of the worst offenders are simply a vocal minority. No, my intention is to shine a light on the more troublesome aspects of the community I personally witnessed during my 4-year stint reviewing within its walls. This is the curious case of the cartoon community. On the outside, the cartoon community on YouTube is, well, just that, a tightly knit community of like-minded individuals who come together to share their thoughts and opinions about animation. Well, yes, it would appear that way, but much like that heavy metal cover that shields the stink of the sewer from the innocent passers-by, that veneer is simply in place to lure the avid animation lover into a sinister cabal perpetuated by endless echo chambers and an indoctrinating environment towards any and all newcomers who dare open their mouths! Okay, I'm heavily exaggerating about that, but there is a kernel of truth in that statement, so let's go over the more accurate observations in a more collated fashion, starting with... Upon entering the cartoon community on YouTube, as a reviewer or commentator, there is something that will be immediately striking to you, and that would be the obligations. What obligations, you might ask? Well, obligations to maintain a certain unspoken status quo. While most communities would expect the ones it elects to either lead or contribute to in a meaningful way to share their thoughts and feelings with a sentiment of diversity, the same can't be said about the cartoon community. One would hope for a melting pot of opinions to fuel the community, so that the same stale information isn't perpetuated throughout the entirety of its members, but in this regard, it's discouraged. How can it be discouraged if what makes a community engaging and interesting is the exact thing the cartoon community shuns? Well, it's hard to say that it could be any other reason than the ones who lead it. The reviewers and commentators. The people who should be breeding discussion and leading the unfamiliar members to new thoughts and experiences are instead in charge of perpetuating only a certain type of sentiment throughout the community's members, new and old. Certain sentiments that never seem to go away, no matter how outdated or obsolete they become. What do I mean by this? Well, to put it in more simple terms, you can picture the reviewers and commentators, anyone who's considered to be an authority figure within the cartoon community, as a proverbial Moses to their audience's Red Sea. Their thoughts and feelings creating a sharp divide between the members of the community. Of course, you can say this about any community. It isn't unique to the cartoon community itself. That's definitely true, but the strange thing about that community in particular is the inherent value this sentiment has among its members. The sentiment that encourages people to form extremely strong opinions and devotions to the animated subject in question, creating a breeding ground of toxic devotees who spread that sentiment to people outside of the community, almost as a deterrent to new members. And what kind of community actually discourages new thoughts and feelings from penetrating its borders? Well, that's because of... To say that the cartoon community on the internet has a devotion problem would be a gross understatement. If one isn't rabidly and unrelentingly loyal to the animation that they enjoy, they're seen as not real fans. You see this all over the place, in the gaming fandoms, pop culture fandoms, sports fandoms, all that kind of stuff. Yet, much like with the crushing sense of obligation within animation, the cartoon community always finds new and interesting ways to take things too far. Take, for instance, Shingeki no Kyojin's creator, Hajime Isayama, receiving death threats for modeling a character after a real historical figure, or the Steven Universe fandom bullying an online artist into attempting to kill herself because she failed to draw the character Rose Quartz as fat enough. Isolated incidents, maybe, but this is only what gets reported by the media. Animation, as a whole, is not really considered worthy of media attention unless it's some big controversy about another cartoon creator being outed as a sexual abuser, or praising the newest Disney or Pixar movie or whatever. Rarely is animation spoken of in a positive light in the media, but there's no denying that many of these incidents occur due to the rabid inbreeding of thoughts and ideas incubated on websites like Tumblr, Reddit, and 4chan. And if the cartoon connoisseurs just can't get enough of brewing lots of bugaboos beneath the floorboards of their favorite shows, they can always show their devotion to someone else. Say, for instance, the ones leading the charge, the reviewers and commentators. Critics of media often have a strange relationship with their audience. On one hand, many people form their opinions based on what critics say or feel about something, without doing their own research or experiencing the media in question on their own. On the other hand, it's not like every person out there can watch or play everything in existence, so critics are important for the aggregation of thoughts and ideas. Criticism is not the root of the issue here. No, the root comes from devotion to the critics themselves. Devotion to how another person feels about something. It's sort of like handing someone a yogurt cup, making them eat it, and basing your enjoyment of the yogurt cup purely on how they react to the flavor, without ever tasting the yogurt yourself. You won't taste the yogurt because you trust their judgment. They must know better than you, right? Well, that leads nicely into the next topic. In this day and age of instantaneous mass communication, literally anyone can be a critic. In a way, that's great, because it allows for more diversity in thoughts and ideas. But in another way, it's bad, because it promotes a follow-the-leader type mentality, where only the most popular opinions, spouted by the most popular personalities, are given any weight and respect whatsoever. If one were to form their own opinion on something that is contrary to what the leading critics say, then you can guarantee that they will be descended upon with the inevitable screeching of bias and contrarian. Yes, bias. The rallying call for the lesser opinions. However, the interesting thing about the cartoon community is who it elects as its leaders. You can search cartoon review on YouTube and find any number of personalities reviewing animation. Anyone can pick up a camera and make a review about whatever they wish. The bar for entry is so low that there is literally nothing stopping you from doing it. Anyone watching this video right now could do it. There's nothing special about it anymore. The reason it isn't special? Because we decided who the leaders are already. Everyone else is just a lowly scrubber who leeches off the opinions of the leaders to make themselves seem dynamic and interesting, right? But how did we decide who the leaders are when literally anyone can throw their hat into the ring? Well, I'll tell you how. Opinion baiting! Yeah, it's clear that any person with even a smidgen of interest in animation will have something that they enjoy immensely, yet the cartoon community pulls in a unique breed of these types of people. Those who not only enjoy the animation in question, but also those who form their personalities around those animations. People referred to as weeaboos in order to insult them for their love of anime, westaboos for western cartoons, bronies for male fans of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, gemsonas for those making original characters within the Steven Universe fandom. It's all about labels! Labels you can slap onto yourself like a bumper sticker to tell people who you are and what you enjoy. Due to that, it's obvious that people will become a tad touchy about the animation they enjoy, because they consider it a significant part of themselves, and a personal insult whenever someone is a detractor of whatever they enjoy. It should be obvious then that one in that state would look for supportive opinions to feel better about the labels they've branded themselves with and receive validation for how they feel. Well, finding supportive opinions and validation isn't difficult at all in the cartoon community. The ones at the top are the ones who share similar experiences to you. The ones who can tell you just how ding-dang much they enjoy stuff like SpongeBob SquarePants and Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh hey, yeah, I remember those. I'd better listen to this person because they also agree that SpongeBob SquarePants and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are great. Aren't we all just so comfy under our... That's right. You see, the leaders of the community aren't chosen because of their dynamic personalities or illustrious records of criticism. No, they're chosen because they are validation dispensers. The cartoon community loves to bundle itself up in its big, cozy blanket of nostalgia so that nobody ever feels left out. You can germinate all kinds of crazy and absurd stuff underneath that blanket. Stuff that would lead avid devotees to say, oh, stampeding innocent McDonald's workers for running out of Szechuan sauce because of a one-off joke in a cartoon, or blackmailing a production studio with leaked photos of confidential storyboards unless your own homosexual fantasy between characters was realized in canon. If I could illustrate the kind of environment the cartoon community lives in, it's like living underneath a giant blanket, with every person inside its warm embrace slowly farting clouds of toxic gas into the air, until the air becomes so vile that only the most toxicity-resistant remain beneath its folds. That's right, the cartoon community is like one enormous Dutch oven. But who's holding up the blankets that contain these Dutch ovens? Well, look no further than us, the reviewers and commentators. Yes, any person can scream their farty opinions to anyone within earshot, but without an environment for them to spread and grow in, that's all it is. A farty opinion. Us reviewers and commentators instead took our nostalgia blankets and lovingly draped them over those devotees, making them feel safe and warm beneath, shielding them from the oppressive light of dissenting opinions. And even if the reviewer holding up their blanket did or said something strange or out of the ordinary, it's fine. After all, they agree with you, and anyone who agrees with you must be trustworthy, right? The problem is, condescending tone aside, is that we often fail to realize that just because someone is spouting an opinion that happens to line up with yours, doesn't mean that person is automatically worthy of trust or devotion. All of them began as your average Joe. Nobody is born a great critic. In a way, critics and their audience have a symbiotic relationship. Critics spout the validating opinions of their audience, and their audience grows in response to that validation, giving the critic more validation of their own. It can be a heady feeling to have a legion of people telling you you're right about an opinion. It makes you feel like you're infallible to criticism yourself, but nobody can be right 100% of the time. Not every opinion you have is going to come from an informed place. It's only a matter of time before something gives, and the audience which once supported you now turn against you. It matters little to the reviewers and commentators who threw their hats into the criticism ring only to leech off the nostalgia blankets of other reviewers for views and money. To those who really care though, it can be quite a blow. The scales fall from your eyes and you're just one of them now, a singular entity searching for validation. We put so much devotion into those who hold the blankets above our heads that it feels like a personal betrayal whenever they do something wrong. Not to say they shouldn't be punished when they do something wrong, but it's not like it's a personal attack or anything. Oh well, best to just move on to the next schmuck standing in line willing to parrot your lines of validation for you. They'll welcome you with open arms. Or will they? So, let's say you've been watching animation reviewers for a while, and you finally decided to toss your hat into the ring. Great! Good for you. I'm sure you'll be amassing fans in no time. As long as you can cover the exact same topics that everyone else is covering and beat all the same dead horses, then you'll be good to go, right? At some point, you might even be welcomed into the brotherhood of reviewers and commentators. That's right, you'll climb up to your own pedestal and join the ones who guide the entire community. What a dream come true, right? Yes, well, it may appear so on the surface. But, while audiences of reviewers seem to enjoy scathing negativity from the people they watch, the same cannot be said of the reviewers themselves. You'd better get ready to pull off some big smiles if you want to fit in with the cartoon cool kids. Behind closed doors, cartoon reviewers seem to have an unspoken rule that negativity isn't allowed near them. It's enough to get you kicked out of their little after-school AV club if you have the gall to be even slightly controversial about anything. Oh yes, if you want to fit in, make sure you parrot the exact same jokes about Butch Hartman and cringy DeviantArt cartoon artists behind their back to each other because it's just the pinnacle of comedy. That's right, the people you look up to as reviewers and commentators are laughing at you and your passion behind your backs. But nah, they're good people, and they tell me what I want to hear to my face, so why would they ever do that? Oh, and don't you dare try to be neutral on any situation. Having no opinion is against the law in cartoon land. You must always be in the loop about everything. Yeah, and while we're at it, make sure you don't ever change your opinion on anything, even if it's been years since you experienced the animation you had an opinion on and don't care anymore. Remember, your opinion is who you are, and who you are should never, ever change. If you change, you might be considered toxic by the other reviewers, and you'll become ostracized from their little Burger King kids club, so don't even bother. Also, you shouldn't bother being someone who actually really cares about animation, because someone will just come along and ride off the coattails of other animation reviewers and commentators, as well as trendy and nostalgic topics, just to milk that YouTube ad revenue machine for all it's got. It's totally not a horrible, scummy thing to do at all. Gee. It's almost like, in order to secure a spot of influence within the cartoon community, you yourself have to turn into a cartoon character. A flat, soulless mannequin who repeats the same information for the rest of their life, pulling water from an already overcrowded well of content. Passing around the same already well-masticated piece of communal gum over and over, praying the flavor will somehow return if you just keep chewing. It's almost like, when you think about it, the pillars of the cartoon community are kind of rotten at their core, and people wonder why the community is seen so negatively outside its own borders. But hey, if you toe the line for a couple of years, maybe you'll have a chance to do a collab video with your favorite reviewer, and that'll make selling your ideals and dignity out all worth it, right? It's important to remember that those who lead the cartoon community are not infallible gods, nor should they be validation dispensers. Searching for reasonable dissenting opinions is the only way to expand your worldview. Lift up the corners of your nostalgia blankets and take a whiff of the fresh air. Remember that you are a lot more interesting than the labels you put on yourself. Instead of saying, I am a fan of this, or I am a fan of that, make sure you tell people why that is. Engage in constructive conversation, and don't always slam the door on anyone who happens to disagree with you. If you disagree with anything I've said here, tell me so! Do I think the cartoon community is hopeless? Of course not. It has many genuinely positive facets as well and can open a lot of people to new experiences. I enjoyed my time within it, in spite of the many issues I saw arise during that span. My intention isn't to throw the entire community under the bus. Rather, my goal is to lift the corners of some obstinate fridges and disturb some of the cockroaches beneath. If the cartoon community on YouTube, and indeed the internet itself, is ever going to shed its image as a bunch of rabid woodchucks endlessly gnawing at the bark of decency and respect, lifting up those fridges and gassing the bugs should be your first step, not just let them scurry about forever. Yes, there will be bad actors in every online community, there's no denying that. But am I wrong for saying so? In the end, what matters is how you feel, so make sure you know that before letting other people tell you that. Don't forget, just because you agree with me doesn't mean I'm right either. All I can tell you is how I feel, so why don't you tell me how you feel? And remember, the Eye of Sol sees it all. But what do you think?